What is up? What is up, boxing fans, FightHype family around the world? After a pretty decent, solid weekend of boxing, thought I'd check in before the championship games over in the NFL, before the NFC and AFC championship games. Go 49ers, of course. But I thought we'd talk a little boxing before we get to the football later today. And Artur Beterbiev, still the lineal unified light heavyweight champion of the world. Kid Austin, Floyd Schofield. Still green, still growing, but still flashed some legitimate blue chip talent last night. And then the man who might be facing Terence Crawford as a huge underdog, Alexis Rocha, getting a big right hook knockout in the 7th round last night over in Southern California. So a couple things we want to Z-cap before we move forward with our championship Sunday. So I'm gonna wait for a few people to get into the chat, and then we'll get started. I guess actually we'll start first with the card on DAZN in just a moment. Some thoughts on Floyd Schofield, Kid Austin. I liked his talent. I liked his punching power. Like that he's still so young at 20 years old with 13 pro fights. Good upside I see. Good ceiling from him. Still obviously at 20 years old, 13 pro fights. Some things he's got to work on, but liked what I saw. So I think that those divisions, those weight classes around the lightweight division are only getting deeper and deeper. More fights have to be made in that division, but it is maybe the most talent-rich division in boxing. So just going to wait for a few more people to enter the chat, and we'll get kicked off here with some thoughts on the DAZN card before we move on to the ESPN fight, Beterbiev. And then we'll look ahead to next week. Alicia Baumgardner and Amanda Serrano co-headlining at the Garden in New York City. Both looking to become undisputed at featherweight and super featherweight, 126, 130. Big favorites in both of their fights. I expect both of those ladies to pull through and become queened, and not king, but become the queens at 126 and 130, like Taylor is at 135. So, and then we got to get into Terence Crawford and the news, the big news here. Let me see. And we got to get into this here, that Terence Crawford may wind up fighting with Golden Boy in what would be a schedule of fights. So this would mean fights, not fight, not just looking to make one fight. Big things brewing, stay tuned. Future plans for Terence Crawford. De La Hoya's DAZN told Chris Mannix prior to Saturday's main event. I told Crawford, let us present you with a schedule of fights leading up to Spence. I have all the confidence in the world that Crawford versus Spence will happen. I don't know about all that. Even if Golden Boy and PBC ultimately, and it very much looks like that's the case, that Tank and Ryan will be fighting. But even with that said, I don't think that necessarily means Spence and Crawford could happen. I mean, I guess in a world where Golden Boy can guarantee the purse for Crawford that PBC didn't want to commit to, if Crawford could fight and beat a Virgil Ortiz, which would garner, a big number, relatively speaking. I think a lot of Mexican and Mexican-American fans would tune into that. If Crawford could take advantage of the attention surrounding that fight, like Bernard Hopkins, of Golden Boy did when he fought Oscar De La Hoya on a much, much bigger scale than what Crawford and Virgil would be. That fight did, 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. But still, Bernard, he didn't capture Oscar's audience by any means, but he took advantage of the situation. He took advantage of all eyes being on them. He beat the guy that sold the tickets and was able to sell some more tickets. Never was able to be like Oscar or Floyd, but he was able to hold his own as a ticket seller after beating guys who were ticket sellers, who were draws. So I guess maybe with Golden Boy giving Terence a big guarantee, and if Terence can become more of a ticket seller by knocking off Ortiz in a big fight, then maybe more money is on the table for Spence and Crawford, and he could share De La Hoya and Golden Boy could share the financial burden of making that fight. But otherwise, man, I'm not thinking about Spencer Crawford. I think a lot of us have moved on. The Rocha fight is pretty trash. I mean, it's to go from negotiating with Spence to fighting Avanizian and then Rocha, it's a huge step down. It's not really anything that's going to get me excited or most boxing fans excited. But if Crawford and Virgil Ortiz, a fight I've been talking about since 2021, I talked about it here on the Z-Caps. I talked about it on my man Sean Porter's show. That ultimately, if Spence and Crawford can't happen, I said this to close 2021. Let's get to Crawford Ortiz. And on Spence's side, I think, Spence and Boots would be great, but Spence has moved up to 54. I don't expect him to go back down to 47. A fight with Charlo would be great. Or if Boots Ennis can move up to 54, that'd be great. So, but I'm not thinking about Crawford and Spence long term. I'm thinking, okay, Terence, Golden Boy and Crawford make good on a Virgil Ortiz Terence Crawford fight. And if not, then the deal is trash. Then it's a waste of our time. But if we get Crawford and Ortiz by the end of 2023, that's a pretty great fight. That's a pretty great replacement at 147 for Spence and Crawford. And then when you think about it, when you think about the fact of how highly Ortiz is rated by the WBC and the fact that he is the mandatory for the WBO, he'll be fighting for the WBA interim title against Stanionis. If Spence is to never return to welterweight and Crawford and Ortiz can fight later in the year, that could potentially be for some of the belts Spence would leave behind vacated, and then in essence give us that unified welterweight title fight anyways. That'd be, the best case scenario if Spence isn't to return to 147. Rarely in boxing do things shake out with that much sense and work out that well, but that I think is the best case scenario from this fallout right here. From Crawford going to Golden Boy, we could see the Virgil Ortiz fight. That's a fight Crawford would be favored in, but not as heavily favored as he would have been 2 or 3 years ago. He's 36 years old. Father Time waits for nobody. He's still, elite. Still Terence Bud Crawford. He's still, in most people's eyes, the best welterweight in the world, if not him, Errol Spence. But he is on his last legs of his prime, like Kobe Bryant in 2010 for that 5th ring, like Michael Jordan in 1998 for that 6th ring, still on top, but already the aging has begun. Not to the point where they can't operate at the highest level, but it has begun. Ortiz would be in a great position to knock off Crawford, with Crawford being at 36. Ortiz would be the underdog, but with his work rate, punching power, natural size, he's going to be a 54 one day. Crawford started all the way down at 35. Ortiz could pull that off. And if you're with Golden Boy, part of me thinks, obviously their plan A is for Ortiz to win. And I don't know if Crawford will get a really close decision against Ortiz on DAZN. But if Crawford wins, part of me thinks, well, that makes sense too, because who better than Bernard Hopkins alongside Oscar to manage a nearing his 40s fighter who's not really the biggest draw. That was Bernard. Bernard was like Terence Crawford a little bit, didn't have the outward star quality of an Olympic gold medalist, but slowly through being a great fighter and his subtle maybe charisma, he did garner an audience. They could, maybe they could make it work even if Plan A doesn't work and he were to actually beat their young gun Ortiz. So, but we'll see. Chat, let me see what's going on. Chat, still a duck, says Jay Wash Force. Jay Wash doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't care. Ultimately, if Crawford and Ortiz comes off, he's calling it a duck against Errol Spence. Stack of Mill TV says Ortiz has to beat Stanionis first. I expect Ortiz to beat Stanionis. Stanionis Butayev was a competitive fight, and Virgil's already seen a lot of what Stanionis brings to the table, having fought Kaviaskis, Mean Machine. I believe they're from the same country, even in Lithuania, or Lativa. Got to remember which of the two Eastern European countries that is. But Virgil, everyone talked about against Mean Machine. He got hurt, but he dropped Mean Machine 4 times, and he stayed on his own feet. That was important for a young fighter to go through. You have to suffer through those moments to get better. Mean Machine isn't a slouch. He hurt Terence Crawford, and so Ortiz was hurt, obviously worse against Mean Machine than Crawford was, but he finished him off in about the same number of rounds. So he's gotten a look at what Stanionis brings to the table. I think Stanionis is a touch better than Mean Machine, but not by a whole lot. And he had a very competitive fight with Butayev, and I think Ortiz, hand speed wise, much better jab than Butayev, and he hits harder, I think too, is a couple of steps above Butayev. So I expect Ortiz to definitely beat Stanionis. And then let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. He's been sitting on that mandatory for a while. So don't be like Jaime Munguia at 160, who was the mandatory for Demetrius Andrade for the longest, and then he becomes the mandatory for Janibek and just sits on, shit or get off the pot, right? So it'll be time for Ortiz to do that, and I think he'll have had enough fights under his belt in conjunction with Crawford beginning to age a little bit that, hey, take that risk, get in there, try to be great, go for that fight. Let's see here. All you see anymore in Boxing Channel chats is Bud is a duck. Well, I see both, Brian Weesey. I see fans of boxing saying Bud didn't sign with PBC because bad business tactics. I see Loco323 saying Oscar's making moves. So I always think in boxing there's never one narrative. There's often two of them at war with each other. That's often the case, in life, in the media. There's two narratives at war, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, or somewhere not even close to either of the two narratives. So, but yeah, that we'll see. My thoughts on Crawford moving with Golden Boy. I don't think long term about a Spence fight at that point. The play is Virgil Ortiz. If we get Virgil Ortiz Crawford by 2023, I'm cool with the move. If not, it's trash. Come on, man. You're moving backward. You're going from Avanesian to Rocha, and no disrespect to Rocha, who, if he's not a top 10-ish welterweight, he's definitely a top 15. Had a good knockout last night on the zone with the right hook, in the 7th round. He's a good fighter, but we already seen someone with the hand speed and the boxing ability of Rashidi Ellis befuddle him and beat him decisively. Crawford's a couple of steps above Ellis. He's a puncher in the way that Ellis isn't. So, we know Crawford, for all intents and purposes, would win that fight. So let's get to the fight that's competitive, him and Virgil Ortiz. So we shall see. And so to move on, some other news of the day. Yeah, Rocha, of course, won the fight last night, 7th round knockout. Good performance, was in control of the fight and got him out of there. Now the man wants Terence Crawford. That's the fight I'm ready for next. He said, let's go. All right, well, again, let Crawford get his... Well, Ortiz is tied up with Staniotis for April. I believe their fight got pushed back from, it was going to happen in March and got pushed back to somewhere in April. Let's go ahead and check that just to make sure. Yeah, April 29th, it got rescheduled for. So, the week before Cinco de Mayo weekend. And, with Ortiz kind of tied up 3 months from now anyways, Crawford might as well stay busy, go ahead and fight Rocha, and do what HBO kind of used to do and Showtime does sometimes, ESPN, when you let the fans know this is an appetizer for a main course to be on the schedule later. So, and again, Crawford's the favorite in that fight. Ortiz coming in with that high guard. He does have a good double jab and a good power jab, so he's not just coming in naked. He's not just coming in, stalking without a jab to cut distance. He has that, and that'll be important against Crawford. But Crawford will figure that jab out and begin to counter over it, and Ortiz will have to learn on the fly. He'll have to show new wrinkles to his game. But I give Ortiz a real good shot of pulling that off. Coming in with the high guard, a little bit straight up and down. Crawford's going to pick around the guard, punch in between his punches, figure him out. But if Ortiz can hold up to the power of Crawford and make it, a dogfight through 12 rounds, he may in his 20s have more bullets in the chamber than Crawford, or in a really close fight that could go either way, or maybe Crawford nicked it. Ortiz will wind up getting the benefit of the doubt as the young guy in the sport that can potentially draw more money for more years to come. That's just how the politics work sometimes. Yeah, I know Bud is 36, not 26. North B more. Hector Alvarado says Crawford was a free agent. PBC Showtime could have signed him to make the Spence fight, but they didn't. And none of the PBC welterweights want to fight Crawford, or they're advised not to take the fight. Just reading some comments. Brian Weiss saying 35, he's 36 in September. Forgive me, Brian. Thank you for the correction. Christian said, come on, Zittel. Ortiz has slickness to it. He doesn't just sit in front of you. Yeah, I know. No, I mean, he bobs his head off the high guard, but he's not Canelo Alvarez or someone like that. He's not going to, all kinds of different upper body movement. He dips off to the side. He doesn't just come walking straight in. You know, he has a little dip to him, no doubt about it. But for the most part, he's relying on hand positioning, the high guard. He doesn't use his feet too much to make you miss. He doesn't use a whole lot of upper body movement. He has a very, very fundamentally sound and tight high guard. Has a really good underrated jab, underrated hand speed and combination punching. I really like Virgil. That's why I think I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls it off against Crawford, who's, you know, roughly 10 years older than him. But at the same time, he's not that sophisticated or nuanced defensively, and Crawford will figure that out. And he will get lit up. He will have to take punches and punishment if he's going to come out on the other side and win that fight against Crawford. So, Baby Kobe says, I don't think Crawford ever wanted to sign to PBC long term. Yeah, we don't know. There's so much hearsay and speculation when it came to the Crawford-Spence saga. I just know that we don't need too many more fights to play out the way that one did. You know, it's not good for boxing. Finger point in whatever direction you'd like, you know, but overall it just wasn't a good look. So I'm ready to move on from it. Been ready to move on from it. If the fight ever does happen, cool, we'll all buy the pay-per-view. But if not, you know, let's look for Crawford to fight Ortiz, and then for Spence, should he beat Thurman, if that fight is a go. I mean, technically, right, that fight has been said it's going to happen, but Spence hasn't confirmed. There's no venue or official date. But yeah, Spence move on to maybe Charlo at 54, or have Boots move up to 54, because I don't think Spence is dropping back down. Tunnel Vision said Golden Boy is not doing an Ortiz versus Crawford fight. Not going to happen. Why do you feel that way, Tunnel Vision? I don't see any other way they can make any waves, move the needle at all. Rocha and Crawford, there's no way they turn a profit on that fight if they have to guarantee Crawford an exorbitant guarantee. The only way they can make a fight with Terence Crawford with Golden Boy that would make any real money would be Ortiz, and it'd probably have to be in Texas, which Crawford already said against Spence he doesn't want to do, but that's where that fight would make the most business. So, but we'll see. I think if Crawford does sign with Golden Boy, that we will get the Ortiz fight in 2023. I think that is the play. I think that'll happen. I'm hopeful it'll happen. If it doesn't, I'll be critical of it, you know. Let's see. Loco323 saying Bud's getting up there in age and Virgil's poised to overthrow him. The Real OG saying he agrees with Tunnel Vision. Doesn't think Golden Boy would ever make Crawford and Ortiz. Tunnel Vision, you want to expand on it a little bit, brother? Go ahead and drop it in the chat, and I'll read what you say about why you think Golden Boy won't make that fight. I don't know. Why do you sign Terence Crawford if you're not going to make that fight? Boxing a lot of times will do things that doesn't make sense, so maybe that'll be the case. But let's see. Let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, Derek Choice, thank you, brother, for the $10. Thank you. If Virgil wins, he becomes the WBA champion, so I don't see how we don't get a Virgil Crawford fight. Thank you so much for the 10, Derek. And actually, you're right. Should he beat Staniosis, we already have a unification. WBA, WBO. I mean, unless Spence drops back down to 47 and says, actually, that WBA belt is mine, and you'll be fighting me for it, Virgil. But we don't see that happening. So to your point, Derek, you know, Virgil's rated very highly. I think he's right behind Thurman at 47 for the WBC. So I could see a scenario where if Spence doesn't return to 47 and Crawford and Ortiz make a fight, that the WBC would sanction it for Errol's vacant WBC belt, and then all of a sudden it's not undisputed, but Crawford Ortiz is for WBC, WBA, WBO, and you got a hell of a consolation prize. You didn't get the Sega Dreamcast on Christmas morning, but you did get the PlayStation 1 bundle or the N64. You know what I mean? You know, I'm just being silly, but that is a scenario where we could still wind up with a welterweight unification. That's probably the best case scenario for the welterweight division at this point, with the fallout from Spence and Crawford, you know, not happening. But thank you so much, Derek, for the 10. Let's see. Unknown says, to be fair, most resumes are garbage. Well, Unknown, with guys fighting once or twice a year, and the best fights often being hard to be made, the caliber of resumes we have in the sport are bound to go down, and they have a little bit when you compare them to the resumes of pound for pounders 20, 30 years ago, where guys would have multiple wins over fellow Hall of Famers. Now, we got a lot of young guys in this era, so they may have potential Hall of Famers on their resumes that haven't panned out yet, or they will face other Hall of Famers in their resume. But to your point, Unknown, when the activity's gone down and the rate of big fights being made has gone down, it's only logical that the strength of resumes goes down a little bit as well. Let's see. Fight for Life says, why your boy Haney trying to duck Lomachenko over money? I heard about that. I heard he's negotiating for more money. Well, he is the A side in that fight now, and he's flexing that A side muscle. I don't think Devin's going to price himself out of a fight with Lomachenko. I think he will win that fight. And him and his dad are businessmen, and they're flexing their ego to both Lomachenko and to Top Rank. And, they got that big chip on their shoulder with we went to Australia, we went to another network, we jumped through hoops to get what we want. Now we got what we want. They feel a certain kind of way about that, and they're flexing it right now. So, but I don't expect him to price himself out of a fight with Lomachenko. I think he's just, flexing that A side muscle a little bit in this fight with Lomachenko, because he is the A side. Lomachenko his best days are behind him. He's still a very good fighter, but his best days are behind him. And, he needs Haney probably right now more than Haney needs him. So we'll see. Junior N says Haney pricing himself out. Baby Kobe, Spence has a better resume than Thurman. It's pretty close. Thurman beat Spence fought a smarter Sean Porter, but Thurman fought Sean at his physical peak. He fought Sean when he was very strong at 147 before years and years and years of making 47 began to drain him just a little bit of his strength. Spence did fight a smarter. Spence fought the best combination of Sean Porter physically and mentally. So credit to Spence for that, but Thurman fought Danny before Spence did. He fought Sean before Spence did. It's closer than you'd think. Thurman was pretty good 5 or 6 years ago. Let's see. Tunnel Vision. You can't say you're about legacy, not money, then put a fight in jeopardy over money. Fight's not in jeopardy yet. The fight's not in jeopardy. He's just negotiating for more money. I think the fight will happen. I don't think it's anything that's going to kill the fight with pricing himself out or anything like that. Flex that A-side muscle versus Shakur. You don't see Devin or Shakur, chomping at the bit to get to each other just yet. I think they both kind of know that's a fight that's just not financially, as big as it can be or close to it. Shakur and Devin have half-heartedly circled each other since Shakur got into 35, but not in full earnest. So I can't say either Shakur's chasing down Devin or Devin's chasing down Shakur. They both look. We have existed in the era of boxing of over marination for about a decade now. But there is such a thing as making a fight too soon as well, and that's the stage Haney and Stevenson are at. That's just facts. Doesn't mean we wouldn't love to see it now. Doesn't mean put it off for 3 fucking years. But a little build-up would be good. A little a little Angelo Dundee before Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns. Give it a year. I can smell it. It's going to be even bigger. Something like that. Jason Sanchez says, Sean, who would win between Ward and Calzaghe in their primes? Very tough matchup for both guys. You saw Calzaghe get sharpshooted by the right hand of Bernard Hopkins. He got dropped by Bernard Hopkins in the first round. He wound up winning a split decision against a 43-year-old Bernard. But Bernard was able to be very effective against him and was clean, effective punching. Ultimately, Calzaghe's work rate and activity got him a decision in a fight where Bernard was punch for punch more accurate than him. You would think Dre would be able to take Bernard's success a step further in his prime and get the job done. I'm American, maybe there's a little bias there. I'll lean towards Ward, but Calzaghe truly is an all-time great fighter, and he's a guy that is always going to be better once you get in there than he is on tape. You see him on tape, sometimes he slaps the punches, he's not fully committing, he ain't going to get away with his hands at his waist shit with me, but then you get in there and the guy's a great fucking fighter. So, I'll give the edge to Ward being the Yankee, but, Calzaghe was great. Was a great fighter. Another 10 from Squared Circle Boxing. Shout out Squared Circle Boxing, man. Thank you guys for the $10. It's game day, so you guys are paying for the 5 guys. Although, you know what we're doing today, right? It ain't 5 guys today. When I eat 5 guys burgers, we're going to subtract 0.1 from 5 guys. It's 4.9 guys. We're eating burgers at 4.9 guys today. Fucking, let's go 49ers. But shout out Squared Circle Boxing. Appreciate you guys, man. Who will be Spence's biggest rival at 154? Asks All Around Hustle. It would be Charlo if they would fight each other, but I don't know if that's the case. Derek James can't be in 2 corners at once. I don't know. Maybe Jermell and Arrow could share him for 30 seconds apiece. Maybe they flip a coin and, whoever wins gets him for the first 30 seconds or the second 30 seconds, however you feel is more valuable. Maybe Derek, and it could sprint from the blue corner and go, okay, Jermell, use your size, keep him on the outside, walk him into shots like we did against Castano. This guy can't take your power, and then run over to the red corner. Okay, Errol, keep walking to him, keep stepping to him, keep committing to the body. He doesn't like it on the inside. Keep it close. Stay close to him. Okay, don't give him his extension to get it to. Don't give him that range he wants. Smother him. Okay, and then he sits in the front row in the middle of the ring. He doesn't sit in any corner for the majority of the round. And then for the first minute and a half of the round, he shouts out instructions to Charlo. And then the second half of the round, he shouts out instructions to Spence. How about that? Does that work? That's Spence's best rival at 154. But no, for Spence at 54, I would like Jaron Ennis to move up and pursue that fight at 54, and they get it in, even if it's not for a belt. Spence and Fundora is a fun fight stylistically. Huge size advantage for Fundora, but Fundora we've seen doesn't really dictate range off his size. He likes to fight on the inside, so Spence should be allowed in on the inside where he can operate and do his best work. That'd be a fun fight to watch, Spence and Fundora. So here we go. Let me Dane Sampson, Sean, who would win between Jermell Charlo and Winky Wright in their primes? I'm gonna go with that man right there. Excuse me. Wait, there he is. Winky Wright. I'm gonna go with Winky Wright. Winky, when you look at how he fought Jermaine Taylor at 160, he arguably should have won that fight. Draw was probably the right call, but Jermaine was even bigger than Jermell Charlo. He was a 160 pounder, not a 154 pounder. He could really punch with his right hand, and Winky Wright stepped to him in the high guard and beat him up 6 out of 12 rounds. Walked through the right hands. He got hurt in the 12th round, but Winky Wright, he could handle power. So I'm talking once he got to his prime. He got dropped 4 or 5 times. What was it? Harry Simon or Simon Brown early in his career, but that was early on. He got a lot better. Prime Winky Wright, I take him against Jermell. He had a dominant jab. He had a great defense, and he threw a lot of punches per round, and he was a dog. He had a chin, and he was thought of as a jabber and a light puncher, but he could walk you down and step to you. Jermell is an all-time great at 154. He really is, but so is Winky, and I'd have to give the edge to Winky Wright. Let's go. Go Niners, says Robert Gallegos. You got it, brother. So what else do we got to look at, guys? Because I'm not trying to stay on too much longer. I got to drop my son off at grandma's house, and then me and my wife are going to watch the Niners hopefully beat the Eagles. It's a tough test. The Eagles have a better quarterback. They're a stacked team, but we got some great players on the 49ers. Anyway, Artur Beterbiev retained that title. You guys probably joined me on the round by round yesterday. Beterbiev remains the WBC, WBO, and IBF light heavyweight champion, the lineal champ, the champ. He's the champ. Bivol is rated higher than him on most pound-for-pound lists. He beat the pound-for-pound king Canelo. And Bivol is favored, in my opinion, to beat Beterbiev if they fight, probably not this year, but next year, where Beterbiev will get only older. But when you're talking 175 pounds, Artur Beterbiev is the king. This is his division, and he is reigning in it. And Anthony Yarde put up a hell of a fight, really when it looked like he was starting to break down already in the 4th round. He went back to his corner for the 5th. and came out, bit down, hurt Artur Beterbiev with 2 right hands. Then he hurt him again in the 7th. Scoring was all over in this place. I didn't agree with anybody's scorecards. I saw people giving Yarde rounds 2, round 6. I gave Anthony Yarde rounds 1, 5, and 7 last night. I had him trailing 4 rounds to 3 heading into that 8th round. He hurt Beterbiev in the 5th. He hurt Beterbiev in the 7th. There's something there to be taken for Bivol in a game plan, because Beterbiev punches harder than Bivol, but he might not have as good a chin of Bivol. Bivol, we've never seen him dropped. The only time we've seen him stunned was by Joe Smith, who punches with cement in his hands. Beterbiev bombed him out so quickly, he never was threatened by the punch of Joe Smith. He never had to weather it or take it on the chin. So, but Bivol did. And Bivol took it like a champ and dominated that fight. Bivol's never been dropped. Anthony Yarde showed that you can, 2 other guys have knocked down Beterbiev, so we know Beterbiev can be hurt. And I think Bivol definitely has the physical strength and the punching power, the respect and punching power to hurt Beterbiev. And Beterbiev out-jabbed Anthony Yarde last night and showed, once again, like he did in the Joe Smith fight, showed underrated footwork from Arthur. Underrated footwork, underrated jab, not just a puncher. But Bivol's footwork and his jab are even better. And we've seen guys be able to hurt Beterbiev in the past. I think Bivol has the boxing skills to have an advantage on the outside. And then, like Yarde did in rounds 5 and 7, he'll have the ability to take a stand, land some hard, sit down on some right hands, and get Beterbiev's respect, and not just continue to let him dictate on the front foot and come forward. So I see Bivol winning that fight. I don't think we're going to get it this year. There's too much dollars on the table for a rematch with Canelo. He'll rematch Canelo. I'm not feeling the 168 talk. Canelo, be a true champion. Fight him at 175. If you could beat him, you could beat him. If you can't, you can't. Don't bring him down 7 pounds. So that's my thoughts on Beterbiev and Yarde. Valiant effort from Anthony Yarde, and the UK fans, they love boxing. They're the type to support you after a loss in a good effort like that, so good on them. And that's about it for the Beterbiev Bivol stuff. I do favor Bivol. I don't think that fight happens this year. Bivol's going to rematch Canelo Alvarez, and then hopefully as early as possible next year we get Beterbiev and Bivol, and hopefully Matchroom, DAZN, and ESPN, Bob Arum, Top Rank don't play any games. They make the fight that people want to see, that the sport needs, and we get light heavyweight undisputed in 2024. In the meantime, though, it looks as though Beterbiev would be tied up with Callum Smith, who is the WBC number 1. He's the WBC number 1. He was now he'll be elevated from 2 to 1 because Yarde got his shot and fell short for the WBO. So, and then as for his IBF title, John Pascal, he already beat Joe Smith. The John Pascal fight sucks. No one wants to see that. Pascal is washed. No disrespect to him. Actually, number 1 is vacant. So, but in all likelihood, he winds up fighting Callum Smith. That's not a waste of time fight if he's got to stay busy while Canelo and Bivol fight again. It's not a bad fight. Callum Smith didn't really show up to win against Canelo Alvarez. He fought incredibly timid in that fight. Apparently got the fight on less than 6 weeks' notice as well. Apparently, really tall kid, almost 6'4", was not really strong at 168 pounds anymore. He has looked better at 175, has Callum Smith. That is not a terrible fight. That's a solid fight for Beterbiev in the interim while he's waiting for the fight he really wants, undisputed against Bivol. Callum Smith, he's got a shot in that fight. Everyone will be picking Bivol, myself included, but Callum Smith has a good left hook. He's regained confidence in that left hook since the Canelo fight. Not a bad fight. And then what else do we got to talk? Let me check you for a second here, chat. Dame Sanson, does Anthony Joshua improve having Derek James in his corner? Well, I wish he would have went to Derek in the first place. I like Robert Garcia. I thought Robert did a solid job with Joshua. I saw the improvements he brought to the table. Joshua was bending his knees, getting lower with Robert, and boxed well under Robert. But I think Derek all along would have been an even better fit. We'll see. we'll see how it all works out. We'll see if at this point Joshua is just a finished product, and no matter what you teach him, he's going to go back to what he came up with, what he knows best. In order for Derek to have success with Joshua, he's going to need multiple fights. I know they got Franklin first up. They can't rush into a Deontay Wilder fight. I know Wilder's disappointed with Joshua's hesitance to jump right in there, but Wilder got his comeback fight with Helenius, and it looks like he'll be fighting Ruiz next. I still think Joshua and Wilder's the fight to make in both of their careers at some point. They gotta see each other before they hang them up. Even without the belts on the line, that fight still, I think, resonates and matters to people in boxing. So we'll see. Let's see. Joshua is overrated. Wilder by TKO in round 3, says North. I don't know. That might be who lands first. We don't know what Wilder really has left still, because Helenius didn't get to him. He got stopped in the first round. I still got to see Wilder take a punch after those wars with Tyson Fury. I still got to see how he reacts to a punch. I favor him over Andy Ruiz, but maybe the first time Ruiz clips Wilder, Wilder's legs do a funny dance and his punch resistance isn't there like it. He always had a good chin, but after those wars with Fury, we got to see what Wilder has left still. I think he still beats Andy Ruiz, but Ruiz is interesting to me because he's been fighting more patient recently. It hasn't been as fun to watch. That Ortiz fight was pretty slow in moments. The second half of the Areola fight was slow because he slowed it down. We expect this shorter Ruiz guy to get in, move his head, get underneath shots, come up with the hook like he did with Joshua. But that hasn't been him the last 2 fights, and maybe that serves him better because maybe being the old Ruiz, moving his head on the front foot, getting underneath, coming up with the hook, maybe he would have walked into a right hand at some point. Maybe he's better being extremely patient against Wilder, but I still favor Wilder to win that fight. Let's take a look at the fights coming up this weekend. Let's close that. We've seen that, and we'll close that as well. All right, here's the fights this weekend. Amanda Serrano against Erica Cruz. Excuse me, voice crack there. And Alicia Baumgardner against, help me out here, people, Elham Mikhalid. I'm going to say Mi Khalid. Mi Khalid. I know it's like DJ Khaled, but I'm going to say Mi Khalid. So this is the tougher matchup for both fighters. Serrano, in fighting Erica Ruiz, or is it Erica Cruz, excuse me. But she is not as good as the fighter from France that Baumgardner's facing. This girl, she actually lost her last fight to Delphine Persoon, but if you guys watch Delphine Persoon, she's an animal. She's a relentless pressure fighter. She's one of the toughest girls to fight in women's boxing. She's relentless. She's like a female. What country are you from again, Delphine? She's like a female Belgium Antonio Margarito a little bit. That's who Delphine Persoon's like a little bit. So no shame in losing her. She was in the fight, won 3 rounds on this card, 4 rounds. No shame in losing that fight. She's a tough. Baumgardner should win that fight. And it was terrible. Baumgardner was supposed to fight Choi. You see the WBA title's vacant. Baumgardner, her biggest rival, Michaela Mayer, said, Choi's not going to fight you. Choi won't fight anybody. She will literally just vacate before she has to fight someone. And the woman literally vacated her belt. She really did. Michaela, you were right. So Baumgardner should still win that fight. Baumgardner is a great talent. One of the most along with Clarissa Shields, the most athletic fighter in women's box. Katie Taylor, too. Katie Taylor, with her foot and her hand speed, very athletic. I think Baumgardner, Shields, and Katie Taylor are the most athletic fighters we got in women's boxing. Baumgardner is extremely good and getting better with Tony Harrison in the corner. Most fighters only get better after they win a big fight, a big title fight. They say you get 50% better as a champion. So if Baumgardner is close to 50% better, watch out, because she's a counterpuncher and she's a puncher with the right hand. Very coordinated, very athletic, hard to hit. I'm very high on Alicia Baumgardner. I expect her to become the undisputed 130-pound champion. As for Erica Cruz, not Erica Ruiz, Erica Cruz from Mexico City, de Ciudad de Mexico. So we got a Mexico, Puerto Rico. Those are always entertaining, and watching Cruz in her last fight, it will be very entertaining. She is a come-forward Mexican brawler, but Serrano punches much harder than her. Serrano is I think aging a little bit because she's been in so many divisions. She's been a veteran for so long. She just had a war with Katie Taylor. She's in her 30s. I do think Serrano is easier to hit these days than she was a couple years ago. She's also been offensive minded, trying to put on an exciting style because it's not easy being in her position to become a draw, and she knows she's got to throw down. She's got to be exciting for people to keep watching, and that's led to her getting hit a little bit more. But she's a much better puncher than Cruz. Cruz's defense is a lot worse than Amanda's. Amanda's getting hit more, but she still moves her head, and she still knows how to pull counters, pull bang, and she's got that in her game. If you stay in punching range with Serrano, you're usually dead meat, and that's Cruz's style. She stays in punching range to fight. I expect Serrano and Baumgardner to become undisputed at featherweight and at 130. They're both, tremendous fighters in women's boxing. Head to head, I'd favor Baumgardner to beat Serrano these days. If Serrano doesn't get that rematch with Taylor and she moved up to 30 to fight Baumgardner, I favor Baumgardner. Baumgardner is very, very excellent fighter right now. In her 20s still with a guy who I think is burgeoning as a great trainer in Tony Harrison. So yeah, still would love to see her fight Michaela Mayer again though. I think that's a great rematch that should happen. Michaela was extremely competitive in that fight. So yeah, that's how I see it. Although I do hear that Taylor and Serrano in all likelihood will be my man Jake Donovan from Box Scene. He is always on the money. I believe that they will be fighting a rematch in Dublin, Ireland. It's just about Serrano getting past this Saturday, and that's a great fight. That's a great rematch. That's what we got on the schedule coming up. Let me make sure I touched on everything. We touched on Beterbiev and Yarde. We touched on Beterbiev facing Callum Smith next. I favor Bivol to beat Beterbiev. We touched on Crawford, potentially going over to fight Ortiz. And again, my final take on that is, who cares? It's a total waste of time if we don't get the Ortiz fight. If we get the Ortiz fight in 2023, all right, that works. Pretty good consolation prize to the Spence fight not happening. Yeah, so I guess that's about it. I am moving a little faster today than normal because I do not want to miss a second of the 49ers game. My wife got grandma. We got grandma to watch Leonardo today, to watch our son, so that we could actually enjoy and watch the game in full, eat some food, smoke a little weed. My wife could drink a little wine, maybe TMI for the chat, but, I keep it real with you guys as much as I can. So that's how we're going to do it. Breaking news, Garoppolo starting over Purdy. Ha ha ha. No. We like a guy that can actually move in the pocket, not a statue that can only throw the ball accurately from 0 to 15 to 20 yards. Purdy can actually throw the ball over 20 yards. He'll actually attempt to throw the ball over 20 yards. He can actually move a little bit and escape when pressure comes. So we're good on Jimmy G. Haven't given up on Trey Lance just yet, though. Brock Purdy, it actually do us some good for Brock Purdy to get injured for 2 games next year, so Trey can do his thing for 2 games and show what he's got. What's next for Yarde? What's next for Yarde, Jeremiah? Vacation. Vacation and maybe a domestic fight with Callum Smith would bring in some big numbers. Yarde gave the best performance of his career in a losing effort. I thought he fought very well, but you got to wonder if he'll be the same. Sometimes in those championship fights where you leave it all in the ring, you leave something behind that you never get back. That I still got to see from Wilder when he fights Ruiz. So we'll see. But what would you like to see Bud do since Spence is fighting Thurman? We've talked about 2 WOCs. It looks like it'll be Rocha, and that's what he'll be doing. So obviously Spence is fighting the better fight in Thurman, although Thurman isn't what he was. Looked good against Barrios, but that's his one fight in 3 years, 3.5 years, maybe even 4 years by the time they meet. But so we'll see. Another great show. Thank you, Warhorse. Appreciate it, brother. Farouk says 49ers should stay with Purdy. They need to get rid of Lance. I know they gave up a lot to get him, but he was a high draft pick, still getting paid a lot. He's not getting paid that much, though, isn't he, Farouk? What would we give him, 5 or 6 mil? That's not that bad. Compared to what other quarterbacks get paid, Purdy's getting paid $900K. So between our two quarterbacks, it'd be like under $7 million. That's fine. I don't want to give up Trey and then he turns out this kid with a cannon arm and great speed on the 40 time is a great talent. We got Purdy for cheap. We got Lance for relatively cheap. Let them do the Steve Young, Joe Montana thing for 2 years, and let's see who's better, and then we'll make our pick from there. I don't want to just give up on Trey. I feel like Purdy, he moves around. He'll get hurt for a game or two next year, and we'll get to see Trey. And if he sucks, then let him go. But if he's really, really good, then you trade one of them for a lot of trade value, because at that point, a lot of them would have trade value. We get a first-round pick out of that or something. I don't know. No, he means years later, so he'll be getting 10 mil plus. Well, that's if he's that good, and that's a good problem you want to have. Appreciate you, though, Farouk, for caring about the Niners. Y'all didn't get Trey for cheap. I mean, contract-wise, he's not making $15, $20, $30 million against the cap. We definitely gave up first-round picks to get him. But it all worked out because Brock wound up being good. I don't know. Our roster's stacked. We're not in desperate need of first-round talents. Not only is our roster stacked, it's pretty young. All these guys, I think Kittle's like the oldest star we have. He's only 28 years old. So what did the Rams say? Fuck them picks. But no, and then the Niners, they draft stars in the second, third, fourth, and fifth round. We don't even need first-round picks like that. Anyway, you want Shanahan to win? He deserves it. Yeah, man, he's come close. He's come close. People will say he's choked a couple times, but that might have made it. He's got to be aggressive today. If the game's close in the second half, don't just go all running game. We do got to run against the Eagles, but go for it. Go for it. Let's not lose by being too conservative. So, Sean, I think it was Bivol who wanted it at 168 since he can fight for undisputed and become a 2-division champ. Says Dane Sampson. All right, well, Dane. Oh, if it's Bivol's choice, I mean, he opened his big mouth, right? But he might come to regret that, like Canelo did when Eddie Reynoso opened his big mouth. We could fight Floyd at 152, and then Floyd and Leonard said, "All right, we'll hold you to that. Fight at 152," and it wasn't very smart. Bivol, don't do that, Bivol. Bivol, for the longest time, has talked about, I'm not really a big 75. I think he may underestimate his own physical strength and size. Look at the man's neck. He's huge. I don't think there's a whole lot. He'd be losing muscle going down to 68. Don't do that. But if he wants to become 2-time undisputed, I definitely understand that logic. If the fight happens at 68 because of Bivol, then I can't give Canelo that much heat. But if the fight happens at 68 because of Canelo, then I give Canelo heat. Javonta says, can you please interview Errol Spence and ask him what's going on with the Crawford fight? I have, Javonte. I've actually done just that. Let's look up here. I'll even look up if it's still there. Javonte asking if I can interview Spence about Crawford. Where's the video? Errol Spence. FightHype. Only 1 million videos are going to come up, but let's try to find the one. Here it is. Yep. So go to this video. Errol Spence sends Terence Crawford nasty message on Avanesian KO. Truth on what's next in Showdown. Go check that out on FightHype. And here, I'll even put audio on for a moment here. I actually can't hear this audio right now, but yeah. Hold on. Where was it where I asked him? I think this is around where I asked him. I can't even hear this. You guys can hear this, and I can't. Boom, boom. So I think right around here, yeah, I'm asking, all right, well, if it's not Crawford, like, then what? Anyways, go check out that interview if you want to see me ask Errol about the Terence fight. Yeah. So that should do it. Who wins? Keyshawn Davis versus Martin. Cruz versus De Los Santos from Venezuela. Isa Cruz against De Los Santos. Great fight. Or De Los Santos from the Dominican Republic versus Rolly. Keyshawn Davis. I think Keyshawn has a higher ceiling than Frank Martin, but I think Frank Martin is more of a grown man right now physically. And Keyshawn is still transitioning from great amateur to great professional, and Frank is fully immersed in the pro game in terms of his style. So Frank would maybe beat Keyshawn right now, but I think 2-3 years from now that'd probably be a different story. So we'll see. But all right, guys. Oh, it's just about time. Let me go ahead and take my little man out to his grandma's house and get ready to watch the 49ers hopefully win along with my wife. Let me see. Let me see if I can get my son in here to sign us out. Sammy, send little man up here. He's gonna sign us out. He doesn't have a shirt on? He's shirtless? Okay. All right. Wait, put his little Niners jersey on. I want him to sign us out. Oh, it's in the jar. All right. Well, you guys hear the little man. Let me go ahead and sign out of here. Get my little man to grandma's house. Thank you guys so much. I like to sign out with the shadow boxing. Keep it going. I'm excited today. It's sloppy. I'll see you guys later. Thanks everyone in the chat. I might go live tomorrow and hit up my man Hassan Rahman Jr. to get his prediction on Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. That fight is official now, February 26th. So I'll see you guys all later. Peace out. Oh wait, are they coming? Okay. Niner gang. Let's go. Bye everyone. Say bye.
Say bye.
Do go ahead. Do the screen then. Do him.
Oh,
he keeps it on him. All right. Bye everyone.